Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Inside Sailtrek SOC. My name is Ria. I am your host, and I'm very pleased to welcome Captain Monique Mills. She is in the Caribbean at the moment, correct?
Yes, I am. I'm in the beautiful island of Grenada in the West Indies.
Nice. Now, we've had you on prior, but tell the audience out there what exactly it is that you do as a captain and what your business is.
Well, I'm a captain and I'm the business owner. So Jambalaya is a 73-foot beautiful cargo schooner converted to more of a passenger pleasure yacht. And we do day charters as well as we'll do multi-day charters, island hopping up the islands and back again. But of course, recently, in the past 15 months, we've been just doing a couple island circuits, but a few things are going on.
Well, the last time that we spoke was back in March of 2021. And of course, things were fairly still closed off at that stage. The world is gradually sort of opening up again. What is the feel there now? How, are you seeing things change? Are you seeing more tourists? Are you seeing things sort of starting to liven up?
We are slowly. I mean, I think you have two kinds of travelers at this point. It's those who are really anxious to go. They've missed their annual vacation, or sometimes these people travel, several times a year. Those people are doing what it takes, getting the vaccines. What do I need to do to get a travel authorization? What's quarantine? And they're researching all over the world just so they can get on a plane and be somewhere else. And then you have the next kind of traveler who's always been a bit of a nervous, anxious traveler. And it's a lot more difficult to get those people back because the only way that you get them back is by making everything convenient and packaged and perfect. Because when they're going on holiday, they need to relax. The last thing they need is for their holiday to become work. So we're continuing to try to extend the assistance to the travelers who are a little bit more anxious and say, okay, it's actually really easy. It's an additional two-step process or something like that. Well, Grenada's been very well organized. And if you're vaccinated, it's a 2-day quarantine. And I think now on the island, there's over 80 places. The range of prices for every suit, anyone's budget. And I think it's over 80 places that are available. So the government and the Ministry of Tourism is really working hand in hand, including encouraging the locals to get vaccinated and the hospitality staff to get vaccinated up front.
One of the things that I've noticed in doing research is that a lot of the governments around the world are pretty slow to address yachting and boating. What is it like there on the ground and in the water, as it were, as far as the government and their sort of appreciation of that industry?
It's interesting because I think all governments are reacting, doing as much as they can, for the most part, just to say, we did as much as we can. And, the realization they need to have is that they did as much as they could, but what has been the cost? What's the impact on different industries and individuals as well? As we could also go along that line of talking about the consequences of mental health and physical health, and people not being able to get to the hospital, surgeries being delayed and things like that. But entire industries and businesses have been wiped out. In Grenada, we've been very lucky that COVID has had a low impact. There's been one death.
Wow.
I don't know, misquote, but I think the most we've ever had is 27 cases. So that has been extremely well managed. And as a result, they haven't had to have a complete lockdown, such as Trinidad, where the entire yachting and all the facilities and services that supported it were completely closed down and have just opened up as of July 19th. So Grenada's been fortunate that this has been manageable, but definitely there's an impact to the services that support the yachting industry, certainly.
And what about the locals? How are they being affected? I mean, obviously, because you've had such low cases, you haven't seen the stress on the healthcare system as much as other islands. But how are they dealing financially?
I don't know. And I ask that question because, of course, I am concerned. I'm doing what I can to keep my crew busy. And of course, it's something it's a skeleton crew, and we're only down to maybe a couple days a week. and in the background, I'm the one that's trying to hustle for business and engage. I think it's, you know, when you're on this island, you can grow food readily, and there's a network of family support. This is sort of my own theory. It's not what I know necessarily true, but this is what I've observed, is that because of that network of family, and that food is readily available when it can be grown. It's not like Canada, where the growing season of 4 months and then the rest of the year is dead winter, where if you have prepared for your winter, you know, 100 years ago, you could possibly die. So it's on this island, I see there's some living going on, where at least you can get fish from the sea and fruit from the trees, or from a neighbor, or a pumpkin or something like that. So I see that the community is really self-supporting, but tough.
And do you think that it is going to be a while yet until things start going back to the way they were prior COVID?
Here's my analogy, and this is the way that I'm looking at it. It's like driving a car at night, and you can only see what's ahead of you from what's illuminated by your headlights. That's all you got.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, when this first started, and I had that thought in my mind, I'm like, okay, you know, 3 to 4 months down the road, that's what I can plan for. And I've had to retract that down to really something like even 3 weeks, because things are changing on a day-to-day basis, and we don't know if 3 or 4 months from now there might be a resurgence of a different variant and things like that. And as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, you take a look at all your variables. Some of them are manageable, some of them are outside of your control. You try to mitigate those risks, and you want to have as few unknown variables as possible, so you can have a predictable business plan, and something that, of course, it's never going to be static, something that's adaptable. But that's what's made this time period unique and frustrating, is you can't plan. And some of the variables that were within your control are now completely unknown. And it's tough to run a business like that. Generally speaking, as an entrepreneur in a small business, you're on your toes every day. And that's okay. You know, we sign up for that. But what's difficult about this is the unknowns are too many.
Yeah.
But all I can say is that I do see that there's a light under the tunnel. What we did with the time off was reinvest in the vessel. At this time, the boat in the business is for sale, turnkey charter operation, we're still operating, but there is a choice that I had to make. Does this boat sit there, and do I just cross my fingers and hope that this clears sooner rather than later? Or do I reinvest in my boat? Because we have time, we don't have clients, so I mean, boats require maintenance. I think the worst thing you can do is have a boat sitting there doing nothing. That neglect, not necessarily active neglect, but just mothballing it, will end up costing you more in the long run. So my strategy was just to keep the boat moving and do what we could. So I did a significant haul out where I did everything I could possibly do, and then put her back in the water, because if I sell the business or I continue operating, that boat has to work. You know, and as a business owner, you like to be able to diversify your markets. I don't have that choice. And I have one asset, one single asset that my business is dependent upon. So that's my that's my crown jewel. So she has to be in mint condition at all times. And if a charter comes tomorrow, she better be ready.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, as far as tourism generally, in August, what would you be normally seeing from, you know, what would be the most popular countries heading over to the Caribbean as far as tourism and chartering?
That's hard to say. I mean, when I first started in this several years ago, I had assumed that the low season would be very quiet. And surprisingly enough, it's steady. Typically what we see, even throughout hurricane season, is that it's steady. Not necessarily busy, but certainly steady.
And where are these people from generally? Are they mainly US citizens or from Canada, North America in general, or do you see people coming from Europe?
I think what you're looking at is more of a cost-aware traveler. And we get a lot of people from the UK. And people from the US, I think, are more focused on exploring their own country at that time of the year, because summertime in the US is beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm Canadian, so I think Canadians are getting that winter break that they need, so they'll tend to stay. But it's more travelers, and the Europeans do a lot of that traveling to travel and explore.
And what are you seeing right now then? The ones that are coming and chartering, few and far between, but who are you seeing currently that are chartering?
Right now, most of my business is still coming from local Grenadians.
Okay.
So there's an expat crowd here, but almost all of my business, except for I think 2 charters recently, have been local. So there's a dynamic shift where I had to reduce my prices significantly so I could access that local market more readily. And in addition, what happened in the marketplace here is that everyone dropped their prices, but they didn't drop them a little bit just to test the market. They went right down, completely cutthroat, because when you're competing for this much business, it was really a race to the bottom, which doesn't help anyone. And once you do that race to the bottom and people become accustomed to that price range, when things return to normal, as we know they will, people are thinking, well, you're able to do this for a third of the price for over a year, and now you're gouging me. Well, there's no gouging going on. And people often say, well, we reduced our prices just to keep the lights on. I would hazard a guess to say most people aren't actually keeping the lights on. You're just trying to slow the bleed, is the position that I think most people are in right now. And where the business is coming from, I'm really not too sure, and it hasn't been opened up long enough for me to say or see one way or another where people are coming from. But we've got flights coming in from the US, from the UK, and that was usually the bread and butter for the most part. And those were the first flights to open up.
Now, once they arrive there, is there a quarantine that they have to go through before? Like, do they have to have 2 vaccination or the full vaccination? Because of course, most of them, I think there's only 1 vaccination that is a 1 jab deal, but most of them are 2. Do they have to have proof of vaccination and there's a quarantine, or how does that work?
Yes. There's a plane traveling overhead right now.
More clients.
That's incredible. Now, whenever you see a plane, you're like, oh. As far as quarantine goes, Grenada's been quick to adapt, and they've set up their processes and their systems for allowing people in to be quite straightforward. So there's twice that I Grenada COVID protocol procedures. So they have, you pre-authorize your travel, of course, ask you personal details and questions, and the number 1 thing is, are you fully vaccinated? And full vaccination means that your second shot was more than 2 weeks ago. So there's a minimum of 2 weeks before that sets in. And if you are fully vaccinated, it's 2 days quarantine. And as soon as you enter the airport, they're very well organized. I just had to do this the other day again. You go through all of your paperwork. You have to have proof of payment with your accommodation, which isn't a big deal. People pay for their accommodation in advance anyway. Yeah. If your test in advance, your accommodation in advance, your travel authorization, and when you land at the airport, they go through your paperwork. You do a quick PCR test at the airport, and as soon as you get those results, you're released. And some people are experiencing that they're getting their results 24 hours later, which is great. Typically, it's within 48 hours, and then you're released from your quarantine. And the beautiful thing about having such a wide variety of accommodations to choose for your quarantine is that your vacation can start immediately.
Yeah, because I mean, you are technically in quarantine yourself right now, and you don't look like you're suffering in any way whatsoever.
Yet. It's one of those things also, I'm the captain and I'm the business owner, is that I do need to step outside so I can get a bit of a perspective on my business. So if I'm on the boat all day, I don't have that time in that space to reflect and refocus and redirect. So the quarantine's excellent for me because everyone thinks I'm sitting around reading a book. I'm actually working.
Yeah.
And now I have to do a shift in my marketing to go back to what it was before, to pull in those international travelers. And then I'm still maintaining a push into the local market too. So everything looks good. We're ready. But we'll see who shows up to play.
Well, you know what? I can tell you straight across the face of the planet, more and more people are realizing that it is an absolutely amazing way to have a vacation with your entire family and still stay safe away from, any possibility of being infected with anything. I mean, chartering a yacht is the best way to do that. There is no other way that equals chartering a yacht. You're surrounded by crew that are constantly keeping things clean. The crew has been already tested. Once you're out on the water, that's it. As long as you stay on the water with your crew, no one's going to come near you. You're safe. So, I mean, I don't think that there's any other way to vacation at the stage where you literally almost have zero chance of catching any virus.
The only chance is when you're going to be in transit. And like I said, for the anxious traveler, that might be enough of a deterrent. But for most people who enjoy traveling, they're ready to go. And, when we were talking about mitigating risk with business, mitigating risk with exposure is what you experience when you're on a charter. Absolutely. Yeah. And we're able to explore. I mean, we're lucky that we have a chain of islands that we can hop around, and every bay you pull into looks different. So, and there's no crowds.
Yeah. Do you know what? I mean, I can imagine this is the time to go. I mean, this is that not only are you talking about the pricing, but I can imagine that, as far as going to restaurants and visiting tourist attractions, that kind of thing, if you've always been on a budget and always wanted to sort of visit via a charter yacht, now is the time to make it happen.
Oh, you're definitely getting deep discounts on the island of Grenada. Everything is open, of course, with masks and certain regular protocol procedures. And Grenada is usually never crowded. That's one of the things that I really love about this island, is it still seems to be a secret. It still seems to be a hidden gem of the Caribbean. So never usually crowded, and now there's nobody. So it is lovely.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to make sure when this interview airs to provide all of your information below it, just in case somebody out there hears this and watches this interview and says, you know what, we're going to take that step and we're going to get in contact. And as well, I mean, we're not talking just any regular charter. We're talking about a boat that is traditional to the Caribbean, built the traditional way. It's not just another motorboat. It's not just another sailboat. It is a traditional boat built in the Caribbean.
Yeah, it's spectacular to know that everything on this boat is handmade, and she is solid, absolutely solid. And if there's anyone that's uncomfortable with sailing and they don't want to be, heeling over anything, she's 36 tons and she cuts through the swells because she was designed as a cargo ship. It's called a Nova Scotia design. And if you have precious cargo, you don't want to be, you don't want to be knocking around and spilling your rum. Just like now, you can hold your rum punch and it's not going to be spilling around. So precious cargo, we're ready for it.
Well, and you just had a major refit as well, actually back in the spring.
What I wanted to do, we had done some work 2 years ago. And what this was about right now is I thought, okay, there's been 12 years of paint, epoxy paint on this wood. I want to know exactly what's going on with this boat. So I took everything right down to the wood so I could have a really good look at the hull and do some inspections there. Very impressed. And we had 2 minor repairs and on the hull, and that was it. And I also needed to, to be forward thinking about this, not knowing what was going to happen in COVID, what the consequences would be, and saying, all right, if I have to sell this boat, I need to prove that she is fit, that she is in condition. And there's no other way to do that, because when people can't travel around and knock on the hull themselves, I have to strip it back. And I've filmed everything down to that detail, and I can prove it. Now, I'm a captain, safety comes first. I also want that reassurance that my ship is solid, because I'm traveling the seas. I want my girl to be safe. I take care of her and she takes care of me. That's my motto. So we took that chance to reinvest.
Well, I have to say, I've seen a lot of the videos, and you know, not even from a safety aspect, but it's just rather fascinating to watch and to see, you know, sort of the detail that went into this handmade boat, and how, you know, because we spoke about it actually a while back as well, about, you know, how you found the bits and pieces that you needed to bring this boat back to its original state. And it's not just as easy as calling up a supplier like you would, like, you know, the motorboats of today or sailing yachts of today. You literally either have to have them made, or you have to search, you know, around the world to find these bits and pieces that you may need.
Well, and when we had to do a little bit of a lot of that was 2 years ago, I had to do a lot of restoration work on the boat because she was in rough shape when I first got her. You were literally going through the forest to find the right trees in order to fit in that perfect place that's going onto the hull. So it's honestly, it's been a labor of love, and I prefer wooden boats. I'd much rather work with a wooden boat than fiberglass and all the toxicity and plastics and things like that. So I love it. It's been a labor of love, and learning how to become, I wouldn't call myself a carpenter, but learning some carpentry skills. I've really enjoyed it. So, yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm really excited to hear that you're back on the water again, and maybe in the future you can send us a few clips of you on your next charter and what the experience is like for those of us that actually can't make it over.
Well, I do have some scheduled for this week, and when I talked about, you know, diversification and it's kind of difficult, you know, we're actually doing a night sail, and it's specifically a moonlight meditation at night.
Wow.
So we're going to lift the anchor at about 6 p.m., sail for a few hours, and then come back again.
Oh, that sounds heavenly. Well, you know what? I mean, everyone out there that this sounds even remotely attractive to, definitely get a hold of her. Well worth the trip, well worth the experience, and something that you'll probably remember for the rest of your life. Captain Monique, I do appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ria. Thanks for having me back. Pleasure to see you again.
You as well. Yes. Sorry?
Come to Grenada. It's beautiful here.
Well, that is on my bucket list, and I will be there one day, and I hope that you still are there, because I would love to go on board your Jambalaya.
Thank you.
Once again, this has been another edition of Inside Sailtrek SOC. You've been listening to Captain Monique Mills from Sail Jambalaya. We'll include all of her information below this interview when it airs. We thank you for tuning in. We'll be back again next week.